Just want to talk about the power of music. And this was inspired by a video that went viral by CC Winey. CC Winey, for those of you not familiar with her, she is a gospel artist. And quite some time ago, she had the opportunity to collaborate with the late Whitney Houston on a remake of a song called I'm Every Woman. Song that many people know. I know the chorus. I don't even know the song like that. I can't even say it's before my time. I just am not familiar with the song. And she had turned it down. She said, no, I'm not going to do it because the lyrics are demonic. The song talks about casting a spell, talking about appearing. There's some concepts that it's easy to gloss over because when you hear the music, and this is what the enemy does, wraps up messages inside catchy beats, and we start bobbing our head to it. And we don't realize what we're saying when we engage in this music. And what CC was pointing out was the fact that there is this gray area that many of us live in, even as believers, where we say, yeah, well, I can be a Christian and listen to any kind of music, right? As long as it's not over the top, as long as it's not, having curse words, talking about violence, whatever have you. This is a powerful song. It's empowering for women, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, it's still, this is where the enemy comes in. And the one thing about music that I was saying, we mentioned this in the book, is that music is one of those things, if not the only thing, that can affect us without our permission, without our conscious permission, right? So over time, there are some habits that you will no longer engage in. You are a new creature in Christ, so things you used to do, manners of speaking, words you used to use, things you used to consume, you don't do anymore. And so if you're presented with the temptation to go back into that life, it's easier for you to say, no, I'm not going to do that, right? To make a conscious choice. But when it comes to music, we don't make a decision. So yes, I can say I'm not going to listen to this kind of music anymore because it glorifies the enemy or does not glorify God, or it makes light of a certain lifestyle that I'm not congruent with anymore. So I can say I'm going to throw it all on my CDs, or I'm dating myself, tapes, whatever have you, or I'm just not going to, I'm going to change my playlist up. Okay, but then you go into a restaurant and you hear music playing that takes you back. Right? It's like time travel. As soon as you hear that song, you are back to where you were when you heard that song. Whatever memories you have attached to it, the lyrics that you thought you forgot, now that you are saved and purified, those lyrics are still there in your mind. And you start to sing the lyrics. And your foot starts to tap and your head starts to bob, and you don't even realize this is happening. It's a subconscious thing. The music affected you without you even realizing it. The thing about it is, though, even though most of us can acknowledge that the enemy has hijacked music, virtually every kind of music out there, even so-called Christian and gospel music, is created with the agenda of giving glory to the enemy, right? So it's not about the worship experience. It's not about utilizing this gift that God has given to give him the glory. It is about getting our senses overloaded, getting our emotions riled up, getting our memories thinking about, other times and other places, right? So the power of music right now, unfortunately, seems to be negative in our battles. And I'm going to tell you, if you are struggling with addictions, if you are struggling with spiritual strongholds in one form or another, it might have to do with the music. That might be an open door. I know for me, about 9 years ago, even before I was on this particular path of spiritual warfare ministry, God convicted me about the music I was listening to. So I'm a business owner, and I would listen to music in my office while I'm working, and I had to change it. So I used to like all kind of trash music, a lot of music, a lot of hip hop music, a lot of R&B music that was not glorifying God, and I was convicted, I ain't gonna listen to that anymore. And so I would listen to jazz because I'm a pianist. I like jazz music. I would listen to it and still was having the same effect. Still was convicted about it. So I was like, now I'm only listening to gospel music, particularly gospel instrumentals. And even in that space, God had me going through my playlist and removing items that were seemingly harmless that were having an effect on me, my connection to God. So outside, I leave that music listening experience, and now I'm either more equipped to engage with God in prayer or less equipped. So what I'm realizing is that as believers, this is a weapon that we don't take advantage of enough. So it's easy for us to sit here and say, you know what? Let's stop listening to worldly music. Let's be careful even of Christian music, right? Let's examine the lyrics. Something makes us feel uncomfortable, let's not listen to it. Certain beats that sound like the world, let's be wary of those. A lot of times what Christian artists do is they will take a worldly song and use the same beat, same instrumentation, and then just put some gaudy lyrics on it and call it a Christian song, right? Which I've always had an issue with when I hear, for example, Kirk Franklin has a song based on September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. So when I hear that song, I'm thinking about the old song, right? I don't care if you change the lyrics. That's where it's taken me, right? So a lot of artists have done that. But let's go even beyond that, right? So yes, the music has. Well, first of all, let's look at this in the Bible. Okay, so we know in the story of David, we see the power of good music, right? And I believe that godly music, music that was created, music that is performed, music that is sung with a spirit that uplifts, a spirit that shows reverence to God, a spirit that wants to be congruent with his will, has a tremendous power over the enemy. So we see numerous verses in the Bible that talk about praising God in whatever situation we're in, singing with songs. The book of James talks about that, right? There is healing in the power of music, right? But in most cases, we sing songs of praise when we're at church, or we'll sing when we're feeling in a good mood, right? But when we are under attack, we don't want to sing, or at least me personally. That's something that God had to convict me on. It was easier for me to sing when things were going well, right? But there's a certain power when you have spiritual warfare, where there are attacks levied against you, and you don't feel like praising. You feel like complaining. You feel like throwing in the towel. You feel like anything but adopting a posture that gives praise. And that's a time exactly that we're supposed to be praising. That's when we're supposed to be singing. That's when we're supposed to be claiming the promises that we have learned the secret of being content in any situation, right? David says in Psalms, I think in Psalms 22, that God inhabits our praise. So when we are praising, there is a certain level of blessing, certain level of insertion of his spirit that comes in to our situation, no matter how hopeless it is. And we need to embrace that. We see in the David narrative, and starting in 1 Samuel 16, that David's this young boy who is anointed with the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God falls upon him when Samuel anoints him. And at that same time, the Spirit of God leaves the current king, which was Saul. And this evil spirit starts to torment him. And David is called, because of his prowess as a harpist, as a songwriter, the spirit in which he plays his music is able to soothe Saul. But it's more than just calming down and making him feel good, just have some nice music. He's literally doing battle with the enemy. As he plays his music and the spirit with which he plays it, he is doing battle such that that spirit that he plays his music with cannot coexist with the evil spirit. It drives the spirit out completely. And this is how David got into the palace, by being able to utilize the spirit that God gave him to bring about some level of comfort and levity for King Saul. So we know that story. But what is never or really talked about is the other side of it. The music that glorifies the enemy. Because a couple chapters later, in 1 Samuel 18, this is after David has killed the giant, and after David's gone on these missions with Saul's army to fight the Philistines, and he's got all these battle victories under his belt. And they're coming back into the city, and the women start to sing this song. And you remember Samuel was approached by the elders because they wanted a king. They were tired of God being their king. And Samuel gave all these warnings, how it was going to happen, and they didn't want to listen. They wanted a human king. So when God was their king, God got all the glory, right? He took all the credit. There's no way that they could reasonably say that had anything to do with all the deliverances that God manifested during their time coming out of Egypt, even during the time of the judges, right? And so you have songs like, for example, in Judges chapter 5, after Deborah and Barak defeat the Canaanites. You have, of course, Exodus 15, when the Red Sea closes up over the Egyptians, and they're singing the song of deliverance. And those songs are giving glory to God. So now here in 1 Samuel 18, the glory is not going to God. It's going to men. Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s, right? And so Saul hears this, and now this music that's not uplifting God has an effect on Saul such that the evil spirit manifests once again. But when David comes with his harp to play, not only does the spirit not drive it out, but Saul gets aggressive and attacks David. This is the impact that music has on us. Music that does not glorify God. It has an impact whether or not we want to acknowledge it. So I want to challenge you as you're listening, as you're watching this, don't take music lightly. Songs that make you feel good because they remind you of back in the day, who's being glorified, right? David says to search me, to see if there be any wicked way in me. I want you to search the music. I want to pray intentionally over the music that you listen to. What kind of impact is it having on your spiritual life? What kind of blessing or curse is it bringing into your life? And how can we, instead of allowing the music to negatively affect us, how can we take back this weapon of music that God has given us and utilize it in our warfare? So I would say, hey, I don't care how good a singer you are. You start singing, right? Particularly when times is tough, it's easy to say, woe is me. I'm tired of all these bills. I'm tired of, whatever the situation is, waiting for money to come, waiting for a relationship to come, waiting for situations to get better with your children. Like, you can speak that over your situation, or you can use the weapon of praise. And so praising God with your voice, but especially with the power of music. If you play an instrument, right? So yes, there is godly music you can listen to, but there's nothing better than you using your own gifts, your own voice, your own talents. And you'll be surprised the kind of effect it has in your spiritual battles. So hopefully this encourages somebody who's watching, someone who's listening. Let's not allow the enemy to infiltrate us anymore with the music that is designed to give him the glory and to disable us as we try to have victories in our battles. Take care. God bless.